Hello and welcome to this edition of Turnaround Marriage. We are so excited to dive in with a subject today that we think is really going to hit close to home for a lot of people. And if you're out there today and you're realizing that something just isn't right, you've realized that your marriage is not what you hoped or dreamed that it was going to be. And it just seems like after a lot of time that you and your husband or wife, you've just grown apart, things seem distant. We're here to help you to kind of reframe things today and really help you to look at it from a slightly different perspective that might actually be exactly the infusion of hope that you might have been looking for.
Yeah, we are Scott and Rachel. And if you're watching on Facebook, give us a thumbs up. Tell us hello. We'd love to hear where you're from and what you're getting out of this. Also, if you're on YouTube and you're checking us out, go ahead and give us that thumbs up button as well, and hit the bell to subscribe so that you don't miss any of our content that will encourage and strengthen your Christian marriage. So we wanted to dive into this idea of why some couples wait until it's too late before they even reach out for help for their marriage. And we see this over and over again. And, we really feel like the very first step that happens in couples that start to have problems is they go into denial mode. They're basically ignoring the warning signs. So many times marriages, when they start to struggle, it's a very slow fade for over a period of months or years. And so we can start to be in denial about a spouse who starts to become more withdrawn. They're coming home a little bit later from work over and over again. They're making more and more excuses about why they want to stay up, why they don't want to go to bed with you. There's maybe less and less affection going on in the marriage. There's very little hand holding, very little intimacy sexually, very little affection just on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
Maybe the spouse starts to become a little more secretive of their phone. They never have it out of their hands. They never want to show it to you. They're always hiding. They change their passlock on it or whatever. There might be more and more excuses of why they don't want to be intimate. They're tired. They're this. They're that. And we can be in denial about things being on this slippery slope because it's like we don't want to believe that something could be off with our spouse. Yeah. We don't want to believe that something could be going wrong. And even sometimes it's just that vacant look in your spouse's eye, or they're not even giving you eye contact. They're avoiding your gaze and they're kind of just busying themselves. But when you do catch their eye, there's some disconnect there. You can tell like something's wrong and you're maybe afraid to bring it up, or you're not sure. And you're like, is it me? Is it somebody else? Is it work? Are they stressed? And we can just be in denial about it and sort of ignore all of those things and just not even want to give them, I guess, any credence because we don't want to believe it, right?
Yeah, and the signs that are also ignored aren't necessarily just like the things you've mentioned. Those are important. That definitely we need to be seeing those, but it could also look like, my husband is just disconnecting from everybody, and he just comes home and watches TV, and he's just really seems like he's kind of depressed, or your wife just seems like totally frazzled, totally stressed out. And all of these are warning signs that things are out of whack. And always, 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 because you are one flesh, if one of you is out of whack emotionally, therefore the marriage is also out of whack at the same time. I'm not saying one comes before the other. Usually they come hand in hand. But the next step after ignoring that is what we call rationalization. And this, we see this all the time. Like it's a natural thing. It's what we want to do is we want to lessen the things that we're facing. We want to minimize them so it doesn't feel as bad. And reality is we're ignoring the symptoms and we're just trying to make it sound a little bit better. But if we actually need to take a hard look at what things are going on. And so one of the examples we see is we hear all the time, well, I'll ask the question, how are your kids coping with the way you guys are disconnected or the way that you guys are fighting? Well, they're just teenagers, or, they're handling it pretty well. They stay in their room and they don't talk to me. And they're totally on their phones all the time. But, that's what teenagers do. I'm sorry, that's not normal, and that's not okay for kids, and it could be rationalizations like, well, everybody struggles, that may be the norm, but that doesn't mean it's good, and it doesn't mean that's what is in God's heart for you either. Or the whole thing, well, no marriage is perfect. Well, of course not, but that's actually quite a cop out to say that, because God designed marriage to be a great blessing for us. Or it could be, well, she's just really stressed out from work, or he's just bringing the stuff home, and it's just a lot of weight on him or her, and we're rationalizing it, and we're basically not just ignoring, but now just trying to dismiss what is very obvious before us.
Yeah. And especially the last 2+ years, we rationalize about
Yes.
COVID. Well, COVID happened and
Yep.
now we worked together.
It's
Or,
COVID's fault.
we were locked up, or I was at the hospital, or, all those things, or you lost people. And so, but after denial and after we rationalize how things are, then comes the realization that maybe your spouse is really starting to check out of the marriage. Maybe that realization is, gosh, we are really in a bad place. Well, the arguing is really getting bad. Well, we are really not communicating. There is just like, we are not sitting down and talking about anything. And I have all this stuff built up, and I have so many frustrations, and he won't even listen. Or he just says, I don't know. And he just shuts down, or he withdraws when I try to bring things up. And that starts to really bring on the fear, right? And when fear is operating, we cannot think straight. It's just that fear part of our brain, the back part of our brain, just those alarm bells are going off, and we're starting to get scared. Like, what if it's going to be like this? What if these arguments are going to keep escalating? I've thrown something. I've screamed these terrible things. I've said horrible things in front of my kids. I've treated him so badly, or I've been withholding sex from him, or he, or he might be thinking, oh my gosh, I've treated her so badly. I've put my hands on her, or I've been calling her names or saying these terrible things. Gosh, and then fear can really come in. The fear of the loss of the marriage, the fear of the loss of connection, or the fear of not being enough. Who at work is he looking at or talking to, right? Or even the fear of change. Like, what if I have to work on these things? And what if this is not just how I'm going to be? Or even fearing more conflict, because if you're going to bring it up, you're probably going to get into a fight about it. And so when fear gets its talons in you, it can just take hold, and it's so hard to access the front part of your brain where you can make good decisions, where you can access logic and reason and really think through things critically in a way that you can see clearly. Because when fear takes in, it's never a good sign, right? And often there's that tipping point of, it's like, how far are we going to let this go before it is too late? Right? It's like kind of like that frog that's sitting in a pot of water, and we're gradually turning the heat up, and all of a sudden one day it's going to be too hot, and the frog's going to be done. And guys, we're here to tell you, if you're noticing this slow fade of going from being in denial and noticing things are off, but just kind of, not paying attention to it, and then kind of rationalizing it, and then, realizing things are bad, and then really getting into that fear mode of, oh my goodness, what if we don't make it? What's going to happen to our kids, and how are we going to afford the attorneys, and what about 2 places and splitting up our assets and all that? If you're noticing that, we're here to tell you and implore you, please do not wait until you are past that tipping point. There does come a point where it's going to be too late. Not to say that you can't get divorced and remarried. We've helped couples do that as well, worked with couples who've been there and done that. Here's the thing, though. That's a very expensive, very painful way to go.
That's true.
And we want to help save you, save you that headache and that heartache.
It's so true. And right along with that, you're so right, Rachel, that a lot of times couples, they'll reach out maybe for some help when there is that realization and there is that fear, and like they go in and they're really hesitant to jump in, or they go and get inferior help or unbiblical help, and it doesn't make things better. And you're going in really apprehensive, or maybe one of you is. And you go in, you get a few sessions, and it doesn't really work. In fact, things start to get worse. Maybe you don't really connect with the help very well. And then or maybe they're guiding you to rehash all the pain. That's so very common. Like, oh, you need help. Well, you need to dig out everything that's gone wrong. And then it feels really painful when all you're doing is rehashing all those things. And so a lot of times it's like, it feels like at that point, it's already too late, because it is so messy. It is so
Mm.
yucky, but there really can be a very different way of dealing with things. So we just want to say, when you get to that point and you think that it is too late, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is.
That's right. Because if those tapes are running in your head, the tapes of, well, we've tried everything, and well, he's never going to change, or she's just this way, or we're just hopeless. We've tried all these things. When those tapes are running in your head, it can really feel and almost validates you to say, well, see, we tried everything, and well, I guess this is all we can do.
Mhm.
And we're here to tell you that and explain that our brains are really hardwired to help you do the same thing over and over again. This is why we get into patterns. This is why we do things the way we do them over and over again, even if it's dysfunctional or painful or whatever. And so because our brains are kind of wired for survival and not really for growth necessarily. And so we're trying to survive, and yet surviving is not the same as growing. And so if those tapes are running and you're believing that we've tried everything, we can't do it, it's hopeless, our situation is different, it's going to really, really keep you stuck. And you might be right at that tipping point, but we're here to encourage you to try to put on a different lens and say, what if things could be different? What if we could turn things around? What if we can learn new habits? What if we could get a heart change? What if we could change our mind? What if we could change our emotional state? What if we could change how we see our spouse, how we see our situation, how we even see the challenges, right? Yeah. And that's what we really help couples do.
Yeah, it's so true. And the tapes really do matter, because the tapes are your reality. And people will say to me, it absolutely takes two to save a marriage. Well, I'll introduce you to Michelle, for example, one of many who was able to really intervene in a powerful way and change the trajectory of her marriage in a powerful way by herself. It's amazing. And it's absolutely possible. And so he's just this way. These are just the cards we're dealt. I'm just a failure. Things are never going to change. They've always been this way. Well, this is just how I am. All these tapes can really serve to keep us stuck and make us to feel like that nothing can ever change. And change is exactly what feels hard, and change is exactly what's necessary. And what was holding us back from change most of all? It is fear. It's the uncertainty. Well, what if it's not reciprocated? The efforts I put in, it's fear that's holding us back. And what does the Bible tell us in 1 John 4:18? Perfect love casts out all fear. In other words, the antidote to fear is perfect love. And where do we get that perfect love? Only and primarily through a relationship with Jesus Christ, which should be experienced in the context of Christian marriage. And so, guys, some of you out there tonight, you need to be having a real heart to heart. Let's cast the fear aside. Let's operate in love. And you and your spouse sit down and talk about, hey, hon, where are we? Our hearts have drifted. We've been operating in a painful manner. Like things could be so much more than what they've been. And you guys just need to have that heart to heart. You need to show up with courage and that perfect love to be able to talk about that and talk about what might be possible. Just to say, this is not what I'm hoping for. This is not what I signed up for. This is not what I want the rest of our lives to be like. And that can be one of the most beautiful, inspirational change moments for the course of your life. And some of you out there are going to be in those moments, and you're talking about things and you're like, yeah, I agree with you, or even your spouse is just so can't even have that conversation. And then that's exactly when you need to reach out and get that help. And we would encourage you guys, either one or both of you, to go ahead and book that complimentary breakthrough call with us so that we can help you. And you can find that at turnaroundmarriage.com/call.
Yeah. So, we do offer that complimentary breakthrough call to really help you get to the bottom of what's not working, and also help you to start dreaming again about what it could be, and then point you in the very best right direction. It might be working with us. It might be another direction, but we do help you get that clarity on the call. And it's so powerful when we can start to break out of this. And again, we want to just implore you, please do not wait until you are past that tipping point.
Yeah.
If you're noticing, you're in denial, you're not even looking at it, you're just ignoring the warning signs, right? Or are you at that rationalization part, where everybody struggles, or are we starting to realize? And then is fear creeping in? Where are you on that spectrum? Please, even if you're at the fear zone, please reach out. That you are right there. We've got to act soon. We would love to help you save your marriage. So you can go to turnaroundmarriage.com/call, and we'll talk to you guys very soon.